Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you again for joining us for another episode of the Equity Alliance Equity Series. We were discussing right before filming that this is going to be close to the second year that we've been hosting these. So for those of you joining us for the first time, we're really grateful that you're here. And for those of you joining us for the 20-something time, we are also glad that you're here. As a reminder, Equity Alliance is a collaborative practice currently by the DMC and City of Rochester, where our hope is to accelerate equitable growth by sharing ideas, best practices, innovative ideas with the broader community, with the hope that we would all implement some of those ideas that allow us to share a deep commitment to that equity and also kind of influence our design of public policy or programming or process so that we can have a thriving, equitable community. So today, we are really excited, thrilled actually, to have Guy Finne join us. He is currently the Director of Community and Strategic Partnership for PossAbilities. And he sent us a great and impressive bio that I had to truncate a little bit, but just wanted to share that he has had lots of experience over time, spent over 25 years at Mayo Clinic, where he develops innovative workforce and talent pathways and programs, mostly for first-generation immigrants, veterans, people with disabilities, including the Bridges to Healthcare program that most of us know about, Project Search, which I think he will detail for us today, and PossAbilities. And so we are very happy to have him join us today to share the work of PossAbilities, providing us the history of that space, as well as current work, and then perhaps a call to action for all of us in our different organizations on how we too can participate, partner, or collaborate with PossAbilities as we continue to grow an equitable community that has a deep focus on community members who have disabilities. So with that, Guy, I will stop sharing my screen and invite you to introduce yourself as well as share this presentation. And as always, this is a conversation that we can all get engaged in. So feel free to utilize the chat for any questions or reflections that you might have throughout the episode.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me see. I needed to request. There we go. Awesome. Here we go. Let me get this up and running. Super. First and foremost, it's just such a pleasure and an honor to have the opportunity to speak to this audience today. And thank you so much for the invite and the ability to do this. As you saw in my bio, I just left Mayo Clinic in March and had this opportunity to come to PossAbilities. Just one more brief information about my connection to PossAbilities. I had the pleasure of being on this board from 2011 through 2018 and chaired the board for 4 years. And my wife and I actually just fell in love with this organization, and we have continued to support them all the way up to this day and look forward to continuing to support it. It was an eye-opening experience for me personally, as I realized how many biases I carried internally about people with disabilities and how little I knew. And so it's just been a treat to be on that learning journey with PossAbilities and beyond. And now here I find myself with an opportunity later in my career to help to make a difference with this organization, in particular with a huge vision that we call the Achievement Hub, which I'll touch on later in my presentation. But first, I was kind of asked just to touch a little bit about PossAbilities and its history and how this all got started. And in 1961, and it was actually before 61 because they actually formally started it, but in the early 60s, there was three mothers that came together and they decided that there needs to be more than what's happening at that present time for people with disabilities, in particular with children. They all had children with disabilities. And for those that, recall, and I've been around long enough that I do remember going to elementary school, going to high school, and they were segregated. They were, this population was in the basement of my school. away from everybody else. They kept them separate in the cafeteria. They kept them separate in the playground. And, these mothers didn't want that anymore. And so they came together to create a new vision for children with development disabilities, which then led to a model called the Day Activity Center, DAC. And DAC actually became kind of a pilot program in the state of Minnesota for others to see and to witness and to realize that maybe we are not serving this population the way that we should, and there's more and better that we can do with this population. So they started to do this thing, and it started to grow. In those early years, given that there were three mothers with children, there was a heavy focus on children and children's services, but that did move into adults as well. And they continued to grow and expand the thoughts about, what can we provide for these various experiences. And it evolved into, a community-wide, community-based support system that then eventually led to this thing called PossAbilities. And PossAbilities, again, has been around for quite some time. And those services continue to expand as they really started to hone in on specific services around creating independence for individuals within our community. How do we help folks find themselves, find their skills, find their desires, find their passion, and find that independence? Quite often related to job training and helping folks go into the workforce. Many people in our community wanted to do that and weren't allowed to do that, and PossAbilities found ways to make sure that happened. To engage in the community, just like all of us. People with disabilities want to fully engage in the community. They want to be part of it. They want to be integrated. They want to see people who look like them and also people who don't look like them and have those relationships and to learn and to grow. I talk a lot about work, learn, and play. And you might hear me say those three words quite often during this presentation: work, learn, and play. And everybody wants to have the opportunity to do those three things, and people with disabilities do as well. I'm just going to mention one more concept called art abilities. And I'm going to talk more about that later in the presentation. But art abilities in 2022 really opened our eyes to what led us to start to talk about the Achievement Hub. And in particular, we kind of asked ourselves, was there a glass ceiling that we even created for our participants in terms of what we exposed them to or what kind of opportunities we gave them? And so I will talk further about that. But it's a very, very exciting program that we added in 2022. Wonderful space, wonderful art opportunities for our artists with disabilities, which we have found we have many, many folks who have that desire. So let me just touch on some of the wide range of programs that we are currently offering here at PossAbilities. And one is employment, as I mentioned, work, learn, and play. And you're going to see this all kind of focused on those three words: work, learn, and play. And employment has been part of what we do. We do try to provide some training as well as follow along supports. I'll dig in a little bit further on employment on a later slide, but I just wanted to highlight that that is one of the things we do. We do home supports and respite. And this is an area, to be honest with you, that I didn't completely understand until I came here in March and I saw my colleagues right here in this building working on this. And I underestimated the value and the importance of this need. And it is one of the biggest needs that we are providing right now here at PossAbilities. But families who have individuals with disabilities within their families, they need help. It is a very hard job to take care of family members in this space, just like it's hard to take care of family members who are struggling with health situations, who are in hospice and other kinds of scenarios that are out there. They need help, they need support, they need a break, they need respite from time to time. And so that is a piece of our puzzle that we provide to our community. We love to offer skill training. We love to offer classes. We love to offer opportunities for folks to grow, develop themselves, both in terms of their academic experience, their skills, their knowledge, their interest, and all leading to empowerment. We do lots of empowerment series where we put people in a position of knowledge that helps them make their decisions on their own, that whole empowerment. And I'll talk a little bit about life enrichment. Again, I mentioned art abilities. I'll dig into that further. Our STARS is our community engagement where we get folks out in the community. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But at the end of the day, all of this is about social interaction and activity. As I mentioned earlier, all of us want to have that social interaction. At least I can tell you that I do. As someone who spent 5 years remote working in the basement of my townhome, I can tell you that coming to PossAbilities and being out of my basement and being engaged with people one-on-one or in multiple spaces has been just so warming to my heart. And I know that many of our participants within this organization have the same desire, and we want to make sure that they get that. So home and community-based services, this is that piece that I was kind of alluding to, where there are families who need our support to help them care for individuals with disabilities within their family. And in many cases, the family desires to, keep the individual at home. They want to provide personalized care, but then they also want the opportunity to take them out of the home and to have interactive experiences with others, interactive experience with the communities. And then in some case, they just need a flat out break from the situation. And so PossAbilities provides all of that, along with training. Um, I like to say, I had a son that was born with heart defects. I needed training to understand what that meant. You're not born understanding what it means to raise a child with heart defects. I needed training. It's no different in this space here. People who are born with disabilities or who acquire disabilities. Um, Family members need training and they desire training to make sure that they're doing the right thing for their family member, and we provide that. You can see the counties that we're serving. So we're more than Rochester, than Olmsted County. I mean, obviously we're located here, but we serve people throughout Southeast Minnesota in these services. And we also handle and support the payroll process. Funding for these kinds of activities come through Medicaid, and there's waiver programs that are out there for these families. And we work with them to make sure that, the waiver program is handled correctly and payroll is handled correctly, so that we make sure that people don't get caught up in the latest conversation in the state called fraud. Life enrichment, just like everybody else, people want to be connected to their community. They want to know their community. They want to share their community. They want to be part of their community. And so we have a robust life enrichment program where folks who do spend a good chunk of their day with us, we just don't keep them in a building here on the campus. They are here as well, but then we try to organize many activities to get them out in the community, to learn about Rochester, to learn about the surrounding area, to learn about the county, to learn about the various assets like Oxbow Park and other zoos or movie theaters or bowling alleys, whatever it is. We try to get them into those kinds of opportunities to enjoy, to have fun, and to develop those skills, to have those socializing opportunities and really to develop relationships. It's kind of amazing how you start to hear, the folks that we've served for a long time, and as they go out to these various engagement activities, people get to know them. People get to look forward to seeing them again, whether it's at a bowling alley or a local store or where it's at. They get to know our participants and they get to love them as much as we do. But at the end of the day, it's about integrating them in the community versus keeping them in a sheltered situation. I alluded to art abilities, and this is something that when I came here in March, it just really opened up my eyes. Terry and I, we heard about this program. We saw some of the artwork because we continued to participate in the annual gala. And quite often there was art that was made available at that gala for the live or the silent auction. And my wife loves it. And we currently have dishes from the Artability program that was designed and decorated by our participants. And she cherishes those dishes truly. But when I went into that building here, when I started in March and saw the level of art that is coming out of our program, I was floored. It is beautiful. And I can't wait until I ask someone to commission a piece for me. But we exposed this to folks, and quite honestly, there was even folks within our team that didn't quite know what we do with this, didn't quite know what our participants could do with this or at what level. And they had just opened our eyes to their skills, to their ability, to their vision of what art is and what they see and what we don't always see. And through that vision, they've just created amazing, amazing things and continue to do so this day. And with Artabilities, we hope to take the next step and engage in the art community of Rochester and the surrounding area, which is very, very rich. We'd love to start doing more mentorships with our individuals who are in this program with artists outside of Possibilities and to try to help us grow their skills and their art outcomes and teach them new skills. And then most importantly, to try to find better spaces to showcase the art that they're producing. Right now, we have a wonderful little studio here on the campus, no doubt about it. But it's not like it's a heavy trafficked area. And we're looking to have a more open space, a more public space to showcase and also, provide an opportunity for our participants to sell that work because they are, like, as I mentioned, they're being commissioned to do work and they are selling their work. And we're very, very excited about that and about what that has led us to with Open Our Eyes with the Achievement Hub. As I mentioned, work, learn, and play. We've been doing pre-employment and employment supports for a long, long, long time. It's a key program within Possibilities. Many, many folks come to us because that's their desire. They want to work. And so that's what we do. One of the things that Possibilities is proud of is we are a believer in competitive integrated employment. So as we reach out to our employment sites, that's our expectation. We're expecting our participants to have a competitive wage and to be integrated within the team. So that is something that we value and we truly expect, and we are so thankful for our employment partners who are willing to do that. And you're going to see from the Achievement Hub, we have bigger visions in this space. But along with that pre-employment and trying to make sure folks are ready for competitive employment, we also support them in a follow along and make sure that we're helping provide some guides and development opportunities along that way. Just a quick example that I will share here, and it happens to be with my former employer, and I was well aware of this program, even going back to when I was a board member on Possibilities, and then did the work I did with workforce development, in particular, one of the pathways focused on people with disabilities. So I was so proud of the work that Mayo Clinic was doing in this space, and it's a wonderful, wonderful work. And again, these are folks who are not only making, minimum wage and above, but there's benefits involved in this as well. And Mayo Clinic has a huge need, as you can imagine, of having specimen jars and vials and test tubes that are properly labeled for the many, many, many tests that we perform. And for years now, we're talking 15 years probably or more, individuals from Possibilities has been making their living labeling these vials with very, very, very high accuracy. In fact, in the picture here is James. And by the way, if you want the best hug in the world, you ask James to give you a hug, because not only is he going to give you a hug, he's going to straighten out your back too. But James has been doing this work for a long time, and that smile on his face is exactly how he looked. I haven't seen James in probably 3, 4 years. And on my second day here, I took a quick tour around, and there was James, remembered my name, gave me my hug, straightened out my back. And then I watched him work. And again, he worked with that big smile on his face. And it's just the value of having meaningful work where they know they're making a difference means so much to our participants. So we want to continue to do this, and we want to continue to do this in a bigger and better way. And by the way, just a quick glance in that picture, you see some of the art that we do have available in the background of that picture, and it's really, really phenomenal stuff. But we want to continue to grow and do even better. Like I've been telling people in my one-on-one visits, the mission's going to be the same. We're going to continue to create opportunities for children and adults with disabilities to contribute to and connect with the community, but we want to elevate all this. We want to do it at a higher level. We want to have more meaning to this. We want to have more choice as we continue to grow forward. And then more importantly, we'd like to have a new space that's just more conducive to doing this mission and fulfilling this mission in an atmosphere that's inspiring and and to be honest with you, worthy for the participants that we are working with. For those that know where we're at, it's a very urban, there's no green, it's industrial, and we'd like to have something different. And so that's our hope with the Achievement Hub. But we're going to continue to focus on, skill classes. And we definitely want to get back into youth. We kind of moved away from youth a little bit coming out of COVID because of funding challenges, but we definitely want to get back into all ages and to serve all ages and serve all families around skill classes and empowering conversations, helping our families navigate the complexity of this world called people with disabilities and all the programs that are available and the funding and waivers and the legalities of all of this. There's just a lot of supports that are needed for this, and we want to continue to do that and do it in an even bigger and better way. And as I mentioned, youth initiatives. We definitely would like to try to get back into more support for children and their families as we continue to move forward. I do want to just kind of share briefly a little bit of the business challenges just to create some awareness of, what we face. And it's just not us. There's other organizations in this community and in Southeast Minnesota that are providing services to families and people with disabilities, and they're all facing these similar challenges. And the biggest challenge is we don't have diversity of funding. Our funding for the most part comes from the government, public funding, and most of it from the federal level, tied to Medicaid. And with the Achievement Hub, we do hope to change that a little bit and try to find some diversity in our funding stream. Because right now, when that funding stream gets disrupted, which quite honestly we're dealing with right now, given the second bullet, the impact of fraud, it's very concerning. And when you have 98% reliant on one funding source and it gets disrupted, as you can imagine, it disrupts your mission. And we're trying to move forward in a direction where we can find more blending of those funding streams. Impact of fraud's been real. I can just tell you as I've onboarded my executive director, Sue Mackert, which you can see in the picture, helping to hold that check. Sue's an amazing, amazing individual who has just tremendous passion. And she's very involved at the federal and the state level in terms of funding. And she's up there right now having those conversations with decision makers about what happens to our funding. And I've hardly seen her since I've onboarded because of the challenges we're facing and her commitment to these conversations, both in St. Paul as well as DC. And she's been at both this spring. Government changes with every election. Government changes. So, it's just a reality that we work with and we have to deal with. And so we just want to be better prepared for those kinds of things. Transportation is costly, as you can imagine, not just fuel, and fuel is more expensive today than it was 2 months ago, but just the maintenance of vehicles, the buying and selling of vehicles. So we've actually moved away from, completely doing transportation to, contract for services. We do still have buses and whatnot here and there, but we don't fully do it ourselves because of the cost in that, and we can predict our expenses a little bit better through contracted services. The acuity of care continues to change, continues to grow. And we have to be aware of that. We have to be in place of that. What's new training that we need, as the care needs change and grow. We have to be in front of all that, make sure there's training that's involved, keep our staff trained, keep our families trained. And as the city of Rochester grows, which, as folks know, the Rochester's growing very quickly, one of the fastest growing cities in the state. If I don't know, it's probably right up there in the nation too. Um, Continued growth brings more folks with needs, and we need to be ready and prepared to offer and support those needs. Some of the things that we look at in terms of what are our measures of success, and one of them is allowing parents to get back to the workforce. One, it's very important to parents personally to continue their career, continue their work. Whether someone was born in their family with disabilities or acquired disabilities along their life journey, there is a desire for folks to get back to work. And we help them do that through the various programs that we have. And at the end of the day, the income that they make is vital to that family. It keeps their door open of that house, keeps the house. And that's all important stuff in our world today. We're trying to make sure that we're in a situation where we help with the emotional challenges that are happening in our society. We hear about mental health all the time. Well, mental health is a real thing, and it's a real thing with the families and the participants of our program as well. And our staff is doing an amazing job. I hear stories after stories after stories down this hallway right over here of our staff who are so focused on the mental health of our folks and trying to stay proactive in that space so that we avoid the blow-ups, we avoid the emergency room visits, and the other distresses that come with that. So impressed with our staff and their commitment to that. We're trying to remain ahead of the curve as things change. And like Sue likes to say, we're eliminating the box. We want to get out of the box and provide something outside of the box, something new, something different, something better than what's typically being provided to our families in the past and today. For sustainability, as we continue to move forward, we want more community engagement. Right now, it's like I mentioned, it's very government-driven kinds of conversation because of our funding. But we'd love to move to a space where the community is more engaged. We're having more conversations with the community about what we do and how we do it, and how the community can help us do that. We want to do more collaboration. We want to do more collaboration with the other organizations who are, in this space with us, as well as other organizations who we think can help us with the Achievement Hub. And you're going to see some of those in a future slide as I continue to present. And without sharing any details, because they're not ready to share, but we're having open discussions with other organizations who are in this space about potentially partnering together, potential mergers, acquisitions, which I think is a cool thing. I'm pretty excited about some of those conversations. As someone who sat on Mayo Clinic's Community Contributions Committee, it was one of the questions that we always asked of our nonprofits is if there is an opportunity for collaboration or partnership between the various nonprofits. There's no shortage of nonprofits in the city of Rochester, Olmsted County, and the surrounding area. And we always encourage that collaboration amongst our nonprofits. I am thankful to learn that PossAbilities has that same attitude as I came on board as a staff member here. So while we stay focused on that mission that I shared with you earlier, We want to be forward thinking in our processes and our systems and what we're making available to our participants on a daily basis. So that leads us to the Achievement Hub as I begin to wrap up this presentation and hopefully engage you with any questions that you might have. But as I mentioned to you, the Achievement Hub came out over the last couple of years and partly tied to, the artability and that experience of opening our eyes that maybe there is this little glass ceiling that we may have created unknowingly, but can we do something bigger and better? Still focused on mission, still focused on our participants, but try to do work, learn, and play at a new level. And as I mentioned to you earlier, we definitely want to move towards a community-led model where the community is more engaged in this space and partnering with us in this space. That leads to not only, work, learn, and play, but definitely some funding models that can help us fulfill our mission, move forward, and balance ourselves between what the government provides and what hopefully our community can provide for an investment. We want to move our conversation about employment and employment sites to careers and employment partners. Um, it's just so important that folks value and enjoy their working experience because they spend so many hours doing it. And we want to make sure our participants have that opportunity to match their skills and interests with what they want to do for work for an income. So we're using terms like employer partners and career opportunities. And we have eight or nine wonderful, consistent employment sites that we've had for years, and they're wonderful, wonderful folks. And I am so thankful that we have them. But we'd love to move to 25, 30 employment partners so that we can match career interests as we continue to move forward. And we want to talk about training. We want to talk about development. You come in at an entry level, is there an opportunity for someone to advance and to do something different and something bigger within their organization with the proper training? And that, Project Search was mentioned in my bio. And Project Search is a program for high school students in their last year of high school. And it does just that. We get to talk to the student about their career interest, and then we get to look at the career that they'd like at Mayo Clinic, and then we break down that job into three-month internship experiences. So they develop their skills, they develop their knowledge, they develop their confidence, they develop the ability to be successful. And I can tell you that Project Search as a model is like 80% successful. And what I mean by that is people land the jobs and they keep the jobs for 5 years or more. And that's a tremendous success percentage. And we feel like we could do that same thing with our adults here at Project Search. We want to make sure that our people have an opportunity to be vibrant members of the community, fully integrated, fully exposed, fully involved. And we think that's very, very important. And even if you think about how Rochester's changing with what's happening with Mayo and DMC, even the conversation of, with DMC about, how are people with disabilities part of that visioning, about accessibility, about access, what's happening in that space with people who live here, who are living the experience of having a disability, to have that opportunity to be part of the conversations. We want to talk more about home ownership. Owning a home is huge. That asset is huge. And how do we talk more about home ownership, whether it's shared, independent, a family residency? We just want to have more and more conversations around that piece because it's vital for people with disabilities and home ownership. As I mentioned before, lifelong learning, we want to be part of that. We want to take it to a higher level than what we're doing today, and then continue to have these collaborative conversations throughout the community in order for us to fulfill the mission of the Achievement Hub, whether it's with nonprofits, whether it's with colleges, whether it's with post-second or secondary schools, other organizations, government, whoever it is, we want to have those kinds of collaborative conversations. And at the end of the day, we just want to make sure that our folks avoid the mental, emotional, societal, and well-being traps that exist, that we help them move through this thing called life in a positive way, in an enjoyable way, in a fully included way. So I just bring this up quickly as this is the current group that is just starting to have vision conversations about the Achievement Hub. And I just met Doug Luby earlier this week for the first time as one of our co-chairs. Doug and his wife Sue are our co-chairs of this council, and this is all brand new stuff, brand new vision. But you can see the folks that we're bringing to the table to kind of get this started. We hope that this starts to grow and expand in terms of the advisory council. As we start to have these early conversations, we're hoping people say, well, you should have so-and-so involved, this organization, this government official. That's our hope as we continue to move forward in the conversation. And as I mentioned to you, we're talking careers. This is just not about employment sites. We want to develop careers. And these are our three folks right now at the start of this conversation. Sargents wants to talk to us about a horticulture program as well as landscaping. So they want to develop, training programs that help people with disabilities land into those career areas. Joe Powers wants folks to go through training in the culinary arts so that people with disabilities can help support their mission and their growth. And that's tremendous opportunities. We all know Joe Powers and Power Ventures is an amazing opportunity for people for employment. And we want to make sure that people with disabilities do that too. And as I mentioned, Mayo Clinic has been doing this in the past, and we hope to grow this in the future. But this is our starting point, and my hope is that we have 25, 30 career hubs, all providing different kinds of career pathways so that when someone comes to us and says, I'm interested in dentistry, we have an opportunity for them to look at a job within the dentist industry in any other interest that they might have. So I will wrap this up with this slide, and just I am open to questions, and I hope we have time for questions as we go forward. But I do have an ask, and my ask is really simple. My ask is, if you're aware of an organization, if you're aware of a business, if you're aware of an individual, if you're aware of a club, or if you have any kind of other awareness that you think I should be talking to, I would just ask you to help me make that connect. I just want to have these conversations with any organization, any connect that we think is of value for the Achievement Hub, that they may see this as an opportunity for them as well as for us. And so I give you my email address and my cell phone number. Send me a text, give me a call, send me an email as you're thinking about this, and help me with a warm connect. We're at the beginning of this conversation within the community. I have several service clubs on schedule that I'm going to be talking to in July and August. But there's all kinds of businesses, there's all kinds of nonprofits, there's all kinds of individuals that I'm not aware of that my audience here today may very well be aware of. And that's that'd be the most amazing gift to me, is with your help in that process. So with that, I will stop sharing and open this up to questions.
Yeah, thank you
And
so much.
hopefully I left time.
Yeah, you have plenty of time. Thank you.
All
And
right.
really appreciate that overview, the historical component of it, what you've done so far, and then the opportunities that perhaps exist for all of us going forward. There are some questions in the chat, but I did want to highlight one enthusiastic person. Linda says, I will be calling.
All
So,
righty.
Guy, look out for that. But we have two questions actually from Molly Dennis. One of the things she says here is, I have a deep admiration for all of the work that your organization does for our community, and thank you. Couple questions. Firstly, what services, training, expertise, and resources does your organization have with adults with invisible challenges, non-apparent disabilities? Specifically, adults on the spectrum of ADHD and autism. There seems to be a lack of resources and understanding in that space. So That's the
Yeah.
first part of the question. I'll let you answer that before reading the next one.
Yeah. So I would love, was that Molly?
Yes.
And Molly, I'd love to have a follow-up conversation with you and bring a colleague with me for that conversation. I can tell you it's a growing conversation within here. Obviously we're not specializing in the spectrum, but we do serve people on the spectrum. In fact, I met a former Project Search student of mine who is here now in the Art Ability program, and we're trying to work. I mentioned dentists. This is the person that wants to work in a dentist's office, and we didn't quite get there with him, and so now I have my second chance. But we are definitely looking to grow more in that space, to be perfectly honest with you. So that's that collaboration effort, right? Because there are those resources in the community, but we want to be collaborative with them as well as to grow in that space. So Molly, I'd love to have a follow-up conversation and bring one of my colleagues with.
Okay. Thank you, Guy. Second part of her question was a large percentage of people experiencing homelessness are also identified as neurodivergent. So does your organization collaborate with homeless community providers here in town?
So, referrals, I mean, it's about what we're going to do. I have the honor of being on the landing board. And so I know that the homeless the organizations working on homelessness are aware of these other places and we're aware of them. So we do the referrals and help do those warm connects. We don't provide specific resources, but we make sure the referrals are happening.
Okay. No, thank you for that. And folks, as you have any questions, you could either place them in the chat or raise your hand and unmute yourself and ask that question. But as I look through here, Andrea says, I appreciate the kind of reflection that you offered, which was what glass ceilings may have unintentionally been created. And that's something I suppose for all of us to think about in our own organizations. What kinds of processes or policies currently exist that would not allow a community member to fully be able to engage? So one of the questions in that same light that I have that has come up is, you talked about competitive integrative employment, which is
Mhm.
wonderful. But
Mhm.
in our conversations with community members who have disabilities, they've also highlighted that depending on what other provisions they might receive, having a competitive wage could be in conflict with that. How
Mhm.
has your organization tackled that issue where folks don't lose their benefits or any benefits they may be receiving because they're now receiving a competitive wage?
Yeah, so we definitely are aware of that situation and we work with our families and we're constantly assessing where they're at between, what they're making and what their waiver is. Now, in some situations, there are folks that are just not going to be able to do the competitive employment opportunity. And instead of competing in this space, we have a wonderful organization called ABC in the community, and that's the collaborative effort. So we have a referral opportunity. ABC continues to do that and provide those kinds of services, when they make sense.
Okay, thank you.
But,
So
but
just to
well aware of the waiver challenge and competitive employment, and we have folks on the team that are constantly working through that to assess it, to measure it, to have conversations with the family about it.
now, does PossAbilities support organizations that might be interested in participating with PossAbilities in kind of evaluating their own policies? Because sometimes you can't see it within your own organization if you have prohibitive policy. If you don't offer that, what direction could you offer to organizations to do that?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question, and I'm probably too new to answer that one, so I apologize in terms of that. It's one that I can definitely follow up to see if we bring external folks. I mean, obviously we have our finances audited, but in terms of policies, I'm not sure if we have a formal audit procedure or not. But I can definitely ask that, and I will follow up with an answer.
Oh, thank you. Jen, I see that you unmuted. I'm going to assume you have a great question here. Okay. Um, Jody, your hand is up. Thank you for joining.
Yes, thank you, Tao. Good morning, Guy. Thank you so much for joining. It's a very important conversation to have. I'm touching on the art ability. You mentioned that you're looking for a space. Could the artwork not be integrated throughout the community? and partner with businesses, coffee shops, surgeons, Mayo Clinic. So we as a community see this pathway throughout our community, and so do the artists in accessible spaces so that their artwork as they are integrated into society as well.
Yeah. Jody, thank you very much for the comment, and we think you're spot on. And that it's part of our vision with the Achievement Hub is to reach out to our art community and to see if we can find more public settings. If there is coffee shops that'd be willing to host our artists, for an afternoon or something like that, or there's storefronts that have space available where they can be displayed, and there's corridors and skyways that obviously you see artwork in the past that will pop up there. I think you're spot on, and that's a strategy that we're going to be implementing with the Achievement Hub.
Thank you. Thank you so much for answering the
Thank you.
question. Good luck with that.
Oh, I appreciate you.
Guy, you're getting a shout out here from Jen Woodford, and she says she was just going to mention that our community is lucky to have you as part of the incredible team at PossAbilities. So wanted to read that out loud for you.
Thank you. Thank you. Jennifer's a wonderful, wonderful individual.
Yes.
Thank you.
Follow-up question here. I mean, we've talked a lot about the idea of participating or becoming a part of that Achievement Hub conversation as an organization. But Wafa, thank you for sharing this question. It's a pre to that. So what can organizations do today to make accommodations to welcome future colleagues with disabilities, from physical preparations to the myriad of other ways that you can prepare so that your organization is actually ready?
So the best way to be ready, if you're looking at trying to improve yourself, the best way to do it is to bring in someone who's had lived experiences. I know I'm going to share an example of this that was eye-opening for us. When we first started our journey with developing pathways for people with disabilities, I hosted a all-day conference on our Mayo Clinic site for the nonprofits, for the Workforce Development Board, for employers, for HR across the city of Rochester and Olmsted County to come and have a day of conversation. And there was about 10 folks that needed to use a wheelchair to get to this event. And let's just say that we set up this event, it was not very conducive to those folks to get to us. And then we did a tour of the campus. And I had my HR colleagues help host these tours. And my HR colleagues came back and said, Guy, it was not easy to get around our campus where we went. We think about our hospital setting, it's set up very easy for wheelchairs, but the rest of the campus, not always the case. And in particular with doors, there was a challenge. So it was eye-opening, and our HR chair was part of those conversations, and it was very eye-opening for us. So we had people with lived experiences that showed us what we were missing as we were planning these kinds of events. And there are organizations out there within this community that can provide you with those kinds of things. And I just do one quick shout out to an individual who I know, a former city council member, Bruce Snyder, who lives here in Rochester his whole entire life. And he has a program called accessibilityambassadors.com. And you can bring in an organization like that, and they can help you evaluate, what your space looks like, what your work environment looks like, what do you have in place to provide accommodations. And I can just promise you, you think about Mayo Clinic with all the resources and to have that personal experience, it was very eye-opening to realize that we weren't providing all the answers either.
No, thank you for that and those additional resources. So I tried to capture all of these, and Guy might reach back out to you for some additional clarification. That way I can share them back with the group after the conversation. Are there other folks who have any questions or reflections that would like to share with Guy?
I see that someone said, oh, Linda said Rusty's artwork is in Little Thistle. Rusty does some amazing work, as with all the rest of them. So that's so cool to see.
Yeah. Hi, Guy. It's good
Hi,
to see you.
Linda.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How about
Good.
yourself?
I am doing very well. I
Good.
work for the ARC Minnesota
I saw
currently,
that.
and which is the reason I will be contacting you because I don't see our name on your list of people who should be on your list.
Yeah.
Um, but my question is with regard to the hub, and I mean, I'm very well aware of possibilities
Yep.
and the beliefs there.
Obviously.
Yes, obviously. So my question is, and I guess my concern as a community citizen, although I don't live in Rochester, is how are you planning to assure that the hub doesn't become a segregated space moving forward? Because I mean, it's always been a value of possibilities to make sure that um, community access is an important part of what they provide. So what's the plan there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the commitment is have a two-way street there. So we still need to continue to do what we do today and to make sure our population is in the community and engaged in the community, participate in the community. But also when we talk about the hub as a space for our participants, we see it as a space for the community as well. So it's a two-way street now where we want folks to come to the hub, the whole community, but also our folks to go to the community as well. Right now, our strategy is to get the folks off our campus and into the community. That won't change. That'll continue to be one of our objectives. But when we gather at the hub, we want it to be more than just our population. We want the community to gather there as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Linda. Great question.
Thank you, Guy. One last question here. What policies do we have on a local or national level that can improve workforce development for community members with disabilities? I know you mentioned this is an ongoing conversation, but anything that you can think of in this moment?
Yeah. It's the biggest piece that I personally witnessed by trying to lead this effort is the understanding of accommodations. Because most people will quickly assume that accommodations cost thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And in reality, the vast majority of them do not. And so, as we worked with candidates with disabilities and we were encouraging our hiring managers and our recruiters to advocate for them, we heard that all the time. Well, I have a tight budget. So having the knowledge of what this actually costs. And so, we created a little cheat sheet within our team so that we could have those conversations. This is what the average cost for this accommodation, for this accommodation, for this accommodation, and trying to be proactive in this space. Because budgets are what budgets are. And hiring managers, while they're looking for the best talent, they're also aware of their budget. And we want to make sure it's not a budget decision that keeps qualified, great candidates from getting the job.
There are folks who want the cheat sheet and would like to see it in the chat. Not right now, Guy.
Yeah, I don't have that anymore, per se, folks, but I could try to see if I can get my hands on it.
Okay, and then Linda also shares that ERAF is also available for smaller employers to help cover the cost of accommodations.
Yeah.
We'll try and make sure we consolidate these resources.
Yeah.
Julie also shares that this such a great organization. You seem to be the perfect person for this role. So at this time, we really appreciate everything that you have shared with us, Guy, and thank you for those who are here for kind of your very engaged participation in this conversation. I like to think it's obviously like many of the other things that we've talked about, it's the beginning of the conversation and not the end. Guy shared his contact information. Please follow up as you would like to.
I would love to. I would love to hear from folks about further conversations, opportunities, things that I need to be aware of. I don't know what I don't know, and you folks can help me know.
Absolutely. So yeah, we really appreciate your time. So if you want to use an emoji or chat to thank Guy for this time. We really appreciate it. But as always, we also like to highlight things that are coming our way. And thank you to Amanda from Rochester Area Foundation, who is always really great about putting these resources together for us. So Mental Health Resource Fair is going to happen May 20th at the Olmsted County Graham Park. That is open to everyone. So if you are able, willing, would like to participate or want to share that with somebody else who might want to participate, please do so. And then May 22nd is Project Community Connect at Christ United Methodist Church. It is free food, haircuts, all blood pressure monitoring, testing, all kinds of things. So if you know someone or you yourself would like to participate in that, it's between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. And then the next one that I want to share here is Ambassadors for Belonging and Equity. There's an opportunity to apply to that. I believe the deadline for that is May 31st. We will share the additional information. I was going to ask Amanda to share additional information, but I don't see her here today. But we're happy to share that with you in our follow-up communication. And as always, we like to share our next episode, which will be coming up here on June 10th. Please join us if there are other folks that you know who could be part of this group and would like to kind of know this information or have an interest area, please invite them as well. But I would be remiss if I did not share something today with the rest of you here. I'll stop sharing my screen. And I don't know if she's still in here. Is Julie Herrera here? Yes, she is. So I'm going to pull this up because I saw it and I thought it was really wonderful. One of our very own, she shared, "How dare I think big?" And so we want to share an applause to Julie Herrera for being appointed by the governor to the, and I will not read this correctly. Julie, would you like to share that with us, to the Minnesota
Council on Latino Affairs?
Yes, yes. And we're so proud of you and so excited and glad that you get to be here with us. So sharing that pomp and circumstance. I know that you have a heart for community and that you continue to elevate voices that aren't always heard. So we wanted to congratulate you on that.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You are welcome. So thank you everyone for joining us for another episode. Hopefully we'll see you June 10th. Also sharing that these episodes are available on YouTube, this one and all others, on the Destination Medical Center YouTube page. And with that, have a great week and see you next month.